I hope you've been staying hydrated all day. If not, let's go grab some water and we need to drink up because hydration, we don't hydrate. If you're new here, my name is Christine and today we are going to be talking about all the books I managed to read in July. The reasoning to why I've read far more books than the previous months is because I'm trying to tackle the fact that I am 20 books behind my 72 book yearly goal. Like, how many I want to read. So yeah, and I felt like, summer, well, I do have, other responsibilities and a job. I do not have school for 2 months. So I'm gonna use that to read as much as I can. But it seems like I'm procrastinating more than reading, if I'm being honest. I also want to preface that I read around 90% of my books, like in normal book, like novel form, words, and around 10% graphic novels and mangas. And that is because I need, a palate cleanser for my creative imaginative juices, because my brain, if I just keep reading words, I will forget to imagine something, so that just fixes that problem. But for the month of July, I have read more than I usually do, and that is because I got into 2 really good mangas, which are Japanese comics, and it is also due to the fact that I upgraded my Kindle Basic to Kindle Paperwhite, which means it has a bigger screen, and it was really good for manga. It was amazing. So the format that I will be using when I'm talking about these books, it's going to start with the general premise. It's going to be spoiler free, and it talks about maybe 10% of the book at most. Then we will be talking about my unhinged thoughts and emotional turmoil that the book has given me, which I ate up. I'm going to keep it as vague as possible because I want you to be interested in the book as much as I'm interested with it, and maybe add that to your never-ending TBR list, because we all have a never-ending TBR list that we will never tackle in our lifetime, and we just keep adding books, just add. So I'm just gonna add to the problem. So firstly, we're gonna be talking about The Measure by Nikki Erlick. The general premise is that a small wooden box appears to every person in the world. Literally every person, even if the government doesn't know your address, it will arrive to you if the person is above the age of 23. So nomads and van lifers, they get the box. And inside this box is their name and a string that corresponds to how long their life will be. A short string will mean you're gonna die a few years, maybe a few days. And this string literally becomes a political, economic, and social issue that will further divide literally everyone in the world, on top of racism, on top of sexism, and on top of ageism and more isms, So how will society cope with this newfound information about people? Will government structures change? What will happen to people's jobs? What about people's relationships? If you married someone with a short string and you have a long string, what will happen? So we follow the POVs of 8 different people to see how life has changed because of the arrival of these strings. The first thing I can say, multiple POVs kind of stress my brain out, but the way the author managed to seamlessly glide all these stories together is just so amazing. I have never seen an author do switches and POV so seamlessly, and literally all their stories connect with each other, and it's just so good, and it's not forced at all. Due to the nature of having a lot of points of views, the chapters are quite short but really impactful. Literally every sentence touches your heartstrings and your brain, and it's just amazing. I give this book a 5 stars. You can probably see I forgot to say it, but it was a good start of the month. And this was a book that I literally could not put down because the chapters were so short, and the fact that the POVs were intertwining so good, I could not put the book down. I'm like, okay, I need to know what happens. And it was so fast paced that I could just not put the book down in the middle of the chapter, because then I'll just be anxious and curious the entire day of what happens to these characters. And with this, I think I found the bread and butter genre for me, and that is tragedy. I won't say this is tragedy, but here's the thing, how long their strings are, right? So if you're following a character with short string, how will they end? So I really like that tragic aspect in this book, but I will not say that this is a tragedy. There's hope. This is not a spoiler. It's a good emotional book. If you want a good cry, if you want a good laugh, if you just wanna pump your heart a little bit, read this book. Next is the manga Spy X Family volume 10 and 11 by Tatsuya Endo. I think these two volumes are a little bit too far into the series to really explain, so I'll just like revert back to volume 1. So general premise, there's this spy, assassin, and telepathic child who is cute as hell. Her name's Anya. And they basically are in this world of West versus East Germany, but it's not called that. I just forgot what it was called. So they try to not get busted by basically the Secret Service while hiding their true professions from one another. Except for, you know, the little telepathic girl Anya, because she can read their minds. It literally isn't plot heavy. Honestly, you don't even need the premise. It's hella cute and hella funny. And this is, you know, the little Anya's face. I don't know if you've seen it around on the internet, but she just has the most memeable like facial expressions. I gave both of them a 4 out of 5 stars. The crazy thing is, like, we're on volume 10 and 11 and the banter hasn't gotten like boring. There's like great equilibrium between the comedy and the politics of this world that I came to enjoy throughout the novels. I see some people being annoyed or frustrated that there's like no new characters that are being introduced in these volumes, but I completely disagree with them, because that just means we get to love and learn more about the characters that we already have and like fully fleshing them out, you know, which makes them more real. And also I appreciate not having new characters because I'm a person that gets confused very easily. And the next book is Song of Silver Flame Like Night? Song of Silver Flame Like Night by Amélie Zhao. So in this book, we follow Lan, who is a song girl in a city that is overrun by colonizers. Since her mother's death, she has become an orphan and is trying to like survive by herself. But the only thing that she has to remember her mother is a strange mark on her left wrist that only she can see. She is eventually saved from like a dangerous situation, a life-threatening situation, by a boy named Zen, who can see the mark that no one else sees. And she's like, whoa! You can see my mark? And basically we learn about the magic system that uses the vital energy of the body called ki. And basically she tries to learn from Zen about this ki. But what will she unravel in the process? What will she learn about her past? What will she learn about the Empire? This is a dual POV book about Lan and Zen. So yeah, I rated this 2 out of 5. This is not a bad book. Despite the rating that I gave it, it was just not my taste. Because my friend loves this book, right? But I did not love it. Like, it feels like the book you'll love if you just started reading. Like when I was in my romantasy era. But it's not heavy on romance. It's like a romance subplot. It's mostly about the magic. But for me, this wasn't it. Her writing is very lyrical and flowery. And while others may like that, it does not hit for me because that means more brain power to read. And the author is amazing at writing environmental descriptions, the setting, the world building. She's amazing at building what it looks like in your mind. But what she's not good at is action scenes. And I love action scenes. I love gore. There's like this buildup of 50 pages for an action scene for it to be over in like 2 paragraphs. Like, it was more telling more than showing. You weren't experiencing the battle. It felt like someone just told it to you like real fast. And that was a little bit annoying for me. I also think that the author info dumped a lot about, you know, the society, the empire, the colonizers, the magic system. Like, it's a lot of info dumping, and it felt like a lot of things that were explained in one chapter keeps repeating for the next several chapters. Maybe so the reader won't forget about this specific thing in this universe, but the repetition really got annoying after like 3 chapters, and the character just keeps saying this one information again and again. It's like, hey, I know this, okay? It just felt a little excessive. I do have a physical book for the next one. The next one is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. We follow a retired soldier who receives a letter from his childhood friend Madeline that basically says she's about to die. Can you come? He comes for, you know, his childhood friend. And when he goes into their, I would say mansion. Yeah, mansion. It's dilapidated. It's run down. And basically when he sees Madeline and her brother, which he's also friends with, they literally are ghostly pale, like white as hell. They have basically no fat in their body. Their cheeks jut out. Their eye sockets jut out. And they just look like they're about to die. Plus their hair, it's super wispy white and really thin, like they're balding. So if you watch House of Dragons, like the king before he passes away, that's literally what I feel like they look like, minus the necrosis. And basically there's like wildlife that are like zombified and they just watch you. Then we learn about some fungus, some mushrooms. And girl, I love this book. I give it a 4 out of 5. So this book gives like the start of Last of Us, like how it started up kind of vibe, and it also gives monsters inside me kind of vibe. So parasitic fungus, if you're into that. This is considered a cottagecore horror, which I do agree with, but it's not a horror that's scary like ghosts or supernatural. It's more fungus, or more like you eat something and it's consuming you from the inside. It's a fast read and it will help you with your reading goals. And there are cute black pages during the start of each chapter, which I loved. And honestly, the cover is amazing. And the more you read into the story, you're like, that cover literally makes so much sense. And honestly, the art is amazing for this, girl. Now, my creme de la creme of this month. My bread and butter. A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. Sorry if I butchered that last part. But this is my baby, okay? I rated this 5 out of 5, but if I still keep thinking about the characters for a month or two, I will be upgrading her to a 6 and will be putting her into my all-time favorites alongside the Poppy War trilogy by R.F. Kuang. So we follow 4 friends from when they first meet to the end of their life. Whoa, right? We followed their life through their successes, their losses, their disappointments, their love, their friendship. What's not to love about that? And we find out that these 4 friends are really held together by one of the members called Jude, who has a very mysterious past, which throughout the novel we unravel, and it is unspeakably horrid childhood traumas. And the way he deals with these traumas and how it has affected his psyche is what makes the book so amazing. This book has a lot of trigger warnings. So before you pick it up, make sure you're in a good mental space. If you have self-harm or have depressive thoughts, I do not recommend this book to you. It will just make that worse. This is a book that I really have a lot of tabs on. I started reading half of it on my Kindle because I went on vacation and I didn't want to bring this big baby with me. So I have more tabs on there. Really represented the debilitating nature of mental illness and how progressively it gets worse and better and maybe worse again, and just how a person can overcome or cannot overcome that illness no matter what happens, because sometimes a wound is so deep that it cannot be closed. There is portrayal of self-harm and life-ending thoughts here in graphic detail. So if you are not into blood, if you are not into gore, please do not read this. This is extremely there. But I really loved its depictions because it's very real. The chaotic thoughts, the very violent tendencies a person can have with themselves really does happen in real life, and a lot of people suffer from it, which is why it gets me a little bit like honestly angry and frustrated when people are like, this is too much, or certain scenes, like certain life-ending or like self-harming scenes, people are like, this is too much, you could have just said to me he did this to himself. But girl, we need to experience what it is firsthand. Like, if you say this is too much, we didn't need to know all of those, you're basically neglecting the people that do suffer from this illness. What happens in this book happens to people in real life, and you cannot say that's too much for me, because it is a lot for the people suffering from it, and it's a way to learn about it, I guess. I just feel like the depictions are very close to real life. It's not too much, it's not over the top, it's not excessive, it's the truth. So if you don't like that, yeah. It has very horrific descriptions, but it's honestly like a book that really grows on you, and you start caring for the characters so much that they're your babies, you know, and you just want to hold them and take care of them. But no matter what you do, okay, I can't say anymore. Every time I think about this book, I cry a little bit on the inside and on the outside too. If something big happens to me, like losing a partner, I feel like I would react the same way as the characters did in this book. I don't think it was over the top. I feel like it was real. It's just tragedy and despair all in one. And those are true human emotions. I really love this. She's a baby. She's thick though. She's like 800 pages. If you've seen Priority of the Orange Tree, this book looks a lot bigger than A Little Life, right? But no, this has 600 pages. The pages are just really thick. And I don't know why there's a lot of space on the top and the bottom. But this guy is literally built like the Bible. The pages are super thin. You could see highlights through it so easily. And they really use like single space text or something. It's so thick, but I could not stop reading it. Also, if you're a girly or boy that like short chapters, this is not it. They have long chapters. Literally one chapter from like the Kindle, right? You can see how many minutes or hours it takes for like till you finish the chapter, and every chapter was like 1.5 hours till you finish it. I was like the next 3 books I'll talk about succession fast because they are mangas again, and the series is called Goodnight Punpun Omnibus, and I read volumes 1, 2, 3, and it is made by Inio Asano. I rated the first 2 books 4 stars and the third book a 3-star. So really quick, you follow the life of Punpun from, specifically in volumes 1 to 3, you follow him from elementary to high school. Volume 1 talks about elementary school and childhood experiences, such as their first love, but also the loss of innocence. They learn about pornography for the first time, and Punpun becomes obsessed with the female part, you know, and he goes boy crazy over that idea. Second one, he's in middle school. He explores love and heartbreak, but also a crumbling family and how he handles divorce. He is learning the loss and separation of relationships he's had all his life, and his first heartbreak and depressive episode is in this volume. Like, he becomes depressed. There's also a backstory of his uncle, and it was really weird. It's like why he hasn't loved someone in 5 years and why he has stopped himself from self-pleasuring. In the third novel, we follow him through his high school years with all the hormones acting up, and we see him go crazy about wanting sexual relations with a female, and it's just the male horny psych during those adolescent years. Punpun becomes not a very good person during this time. And also, if you've seen the images, that's literally Punpun. He's human, but in the manga it's represented that he's this like bird thingy, and the juxtaposition between this little doodly guy with very realistic scenery and people is just, I've never seen it before. It's amazing. Art is amazing, and it gets better through every volume. I would say that this has very deep and strong themes about society as a whole and how people treat each other, but also like existential crisis kind of thing. And it just gets darker and darker in every book. I love this book, but the reason I gave the third volume a 3-star is because I did not fully enjoy it compared to the other ones, because it wasn't comedic anymore. It was becoming a little bit more existential crisis, depressive, and it was just not as, I did not gravitate towards it because it did have such deep themes. But I would totally recommend this manga. It is very weird. It's very weird. It has a lot of explicit sexual content. Read it. Look at trigger warnings if needed. Next, I read Normal People by Sally Rooney. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Basically, it's about these 2 people who fall in love but out of love again, and you just see the intricacies of human relationship through their actions with other people and how their mindset has changed as they've aged. Basically, intricacies of human relationships and the destructiveness of the human psyche or the human mind or the human thought processes. And we just grow with these 2 characters. It's dual POV again, and we grow with them, we learn with them, and we cry and laugh with them. So if you want a story about love, falling out of love, being in your 20s, disappointments, you know, all that, this is a good book. I've seen a lot of people recommend this for people in their 20s, and I get that. This book is extremely frustrating because this is a whole book about miscommunication. Like, literally everything. But honestly, that's how life works, right? We never know how the other person is interpreting our words and how they feel. So this is a perfect representation of like literal life and how it doesn't go your way exactly. This book has love and romance, but it is not a romance. If you want a romance that's very like the typical romances, that's a story of them finding love within each other, 70% more miscommunication, and then they get together, happy ending. This is not it. This is how hard relationships are. This is mostly a situationship, so if you're not in for some banging without being in a relationship, don't read this. This has some banging. It's explicit, but it's not bad. The next book is This Is How You Lose the Time More and is made by two authors, Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. So sorry if I butchered their names again. I rated this 3 out of 5 stars, and it is a story of two rival agents, Blue and Red. I know, the names are so easy to remember and it's honestly so cute. During a time war, which is a fight through the multiverse, the parallel universes, parallel timelines, who secretly share unique forms of letters to each other, and they try to keep this hidden from their supervisors. You're not allowed to correspond to the opposing side of the war, right? And these letters are not like normal paper letters, but it's in seeds. It's in a seal, and there's one that took centuries to make, and it was carved in each ring of a tree, and the other person found it only by chopping it down when she was with Genghis Khan. They're almost immortal. They basically switch from timeline to timeline while following orders, like, oh, you need to save people from Atlantis. It isn't necessarily plot heavy. If the world building gets too much and you don't understand at what chapter, it's fine, you can go to the next one, because the setting changes in every single one. The time period changes, the landscape changes, the politics of that place change. Genghis Khan is in one of them. The most important part are the letters and how beautifully crafted they are. This book, it mostly consists of letter entries in a romantic and metaphorical kind of way. So while the chapters are only like 5 to 11 minutes long to read, it's very dense, every word meticulously planted, so it will take a lot of brain power to fully comprehend it, but honestly read it as a special love letter to you, and it's like, wow, oh my god, I'm falling in love. So while it is a short book of like 200 pages, it will take a while to finish because of this dense writing, this dense lyrical writing. But because the words were handcrafted so precisely, with a lot of imagery, personification, and more, honestly, it's just filled with so much emotion and so much love, if I'm being honest. And it was just a fun read. It seems like a short book because it's so dense, it will take you a while to read it. Like, I would read 2 chapters and then put it down, and then 2 hours later I would read more chapters because my brain would hurt trying to comprehend it fully. So my copy of the book had like book club discussion questions at the back, which analyze the book in a more literary sense, and I would love to go back into it with like a close reading analysis lens or a literary analysis lens to fully appreciate what the book has to offer, because it's so dense but also so good. Also, the 2 protagonists are written by 2 different authors. That's why there were 2 authors there. I previously DNF'd this book last year, but that was because I was into more romance before, but now I am getting into more literary fiction. And honestly, I've taken like speculative fiction classes and other literary analysis classes, which makes me appreciate books like this more, and not those romances that are kind of like reality TV show. Meanwhile, this one's like a documentary kind of vibe. I'm not here to hate on any of the books. Some of them just aren't my taste, and I have more specific taste. I like tragedy, I guess. But I hope that you found this video enjoyable. Maybe you got some good book recommendations out of my jumbly words, and I really hope you just enjoyed this experience with me. Hopefully I diversified your reading. Maybe I didn't, but I hope you liked it. And that is it. Those are all the books I read, and I hope you have a nice day. Remember, stay hydrated. If you have an animal, pet an animal. If there's a tree, hug a tree. If you don't like insects, don't hug a tree. I hope you keep on reading. Thank you for sharing this love of books with me in this time. Thank you for sharing your time with me, and I hope to come back soon with another video. Bye bye. I'm also so sad. I was recording this in 4K. I was like almost done with it, but then my phone couldn't handle it. It's okay. We're here for the content, not the quality.